Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about 3 books that are about Esoteric Christianity and Rosicrucianism. And these 3 books are written by the same author. So the first one is called Rosicrucian Wisdom, an Introduction. And this is written by Rudolf Steiner. And these 3 books that are written by Rudolf Steiner are about Rosicrucianism and Esoteric Christianity, and these are really a modern form of Rosicrucian approach. Rudolf Steiner is probably better known as an educator and founder of schools, alternative schools, and also known for his theories about nature and biodynamic farming and things like that. But he was also quite a spiritual theorist. So he had his own form of spiritual science. So he wrote quite a lot of spiritual books. So this one is an introduction to Rosicrucianism. You just need to keep in mind that this is modern Rosicrucianism, and Rudolf Steiner also had an unconventional approach at times. These are books about Rosicrucianism and Esoteric Christianity, and they're a combination of the conventional Rosicrucian thought, but they are also intertwined with some of his own theories and ideas as well from the modern period. So you need to remember that if you're interested in getting these books. So this one, Rosicrucian Wisdom, an Introduction. Now these are taken from lectures of Steiner, by Steiner, but they're all divided into chapters, and at the front contents of the book it is always outlined what is in each chapter. So for example, some of these were taken from the earlier period, the early 1900s, and other books of Steiner go to a later period right up until the 1920s. So this book is lectures from around 1907. But the good thing about these chapters and the information in the book is that the way that these are worded, they're all translated from German into English. They don't have a dated sort of wording, which is really good. I know sometimes when you read older books from older periods and you just think, oh, this sounds really, the language is really dated, but these books are not like that. They're quite easy to read the language in the words. I think the only challenge is to quite understand the ideas that are behind the writings. That's all. But that's really good for reflection anyway, to spend some time thinking about what you are reading or what you have read. So the first chapter is called The New Form of Wisdom, and it's all about the history, just a quite an outline of history about Rosicrucianism, just a background, and the work of Christian Rosicrucian. And Christian Rosicrucian is the legendary founder of Rosicrucianism. So there is, of course, when you're going to approach the history of Rosicrucianism, you have to talk about Christian Rosicrucian. And then it talks about what he calls here the relative position of teacher and pupil, or teacher and student, in Rosicrucianism. And he also talks about the task of the Rosicrucian, what kind of approach that you have to your studies if you're going to take the Rosicrucian path. And as I was saying, all of the chapters have got headings and about what they're about, but it's also it has noted subheadings for each chapter, so you know what's going to be in each chapter. And then the last chapter is called The Nature of Initiation and the 7 stages of the Christian and Rosicrucian path of initiation. There's a lot of other things in here too. One thing that is a Rosicrucian concept that some people may not know about is that there are theories about the planetary ladder and planetary evolution, and that is actually very much to do with the modern version of Rosicrucianism. And by that I also include Manly Hall in that as well. So planetary evolution is in here too, in part 1 and 2. It's divided into part 1 and part 2, 2 separate chapters. So I think that's the best thing I can talk about here regarding this book, Rosicrucian Wisdom and Introduction by Rudolf Steiner. So that book is a good introduction. It's a good compact introduction. It's not too thick. It's just your standard paperback size. Now the next one, written by Rudolf Steiner, this is called Esoteric Christianity and the Mission of Christian Rosicrucians. So this is a thicker book. So it's the main title is Esoteric Christianity and the Mission of Christian Rosicrucians. Now this one is lectures that were given only a few years later, around 1911 and 1912. And it's good to keep in mind that this period is basically the same as when, around the time that Arthur Waite created his tarot deck. And of course his order was the Fellowship of the Rosy Cross. So that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're reading these, if you get these books too. But the difference you need to keep in mind with Steiner was that he was also quite influenced by theosophy, the theosophy of Madame Blavatsky. So you will get some influence there with that. For example, in the previous book I just spoke about, there will be some chapters here on karma. And karma is not really, I mean, that's an Eastern concept. That comes from theosophy, the theosophy of Blavatsky. It was very Eastern based. So you need to keep in mind that that's not strictly Rosicrucian. That's what I meant when I said that these books by Steiner are a more modern and unconventional approach. So you need to keep that in mind. Now, the Esoteric Christianity book, there's a chapter on Rosicrucian Christianity. And the other concept that is Rosicrucian, that some people may not know about, is there is concepts not only about nature, but there's concepts about the holy blood of Christ, for example. So there'll be reference to that, and there's reference to that in this book. And as I was saying, there is some theosophy in this book too. So you'll need to, there'll be some Eastern, a few, not many, but some Eastern concepts in here. And karma again is in this book as well. And what is good about this book, towards the end of the book, there is the last 2 chapters. There is a special address given to the opening of a Christian Rosicrucian group. So that's a really worthwhile chapter in here. And also another chapter about the mission of Christian Rosicrucians, which is the subtitle of the book. And there's also a bit of Hermeticism in here as well, about at the as above, so below concept as well. So this is another worthwhile book as well, if you are interested in finding out about the Steiner approach to esoteric Christianity and Rosicrucianism. So if you want a bit more detail that is not in the first book, then you might think about getting this book. Now, the third book by Rudolf Steiner, this one is particularly about Rosicrucianism and particularly about Christian Rosicrucians, and this is called The Secret Stream, and the subtitle is Christian Rosicrucians and Rosicrucianism. So here is the lovely cover. I love this cover. I think it's from a famous painting. I think it's by Rembrandt. It's a beautiful cover. And I love the title, The Secret Stream. So this is about the secret stream of wisdom. Yes, the painting is by Rembrandt. I'm just looking at the back of the book. It's a beautiful, really, really beautiful picture. So there's a lot in this book, particularly about Rosicrucianism and Christian Rosicrucians. And again, this is put in lecture form, but they're just they're chapters, so that's okay. This one is in different parts. Part 1 is Rosicrucianism. And for an example, an idea of the chapters in here. One chapter is called Who Are the Rosicrucians? The next chapter of part 1 is Rosicrucian Practice. Chapter 4 is Stages of Rosicrucian Initiation. Chapter 6 is Rosicrucian symbols. Then part 2 is the mission of Christian Rosicrucians. Chapter 7, who was Christian Rosicrucian? And chapter 8, the teachings of Christian Rosicrucians. Then part 3 is the Rosicrucian path of alchemy. By that we really mean particularly internal alchemy, inner alchemy particularly. And a really important chapter in here that is included and should always be included about any book that's about Christian Rosicrucians is the story of the chemical wedding. And sometimes that chemical word is spelt with a Y. In this book it's spelt with an E. By that it's really the alchemical wedding. And that was a story that is, or an allegory that is attributed to Christian Rosicrucians. So this is really important part. So that chapter in part 3, the chemical wedding of Christian Rosicrucians. Part 4 is Rosicrucianism and modern initiation. So that's really important to keep in mind, that the last 2 parts of the book are moving on to modern times and the modern approach. And then part 5 is Rosicrucian meditation, which has a lot to do with Rosicrucian the Rosicrucian approach, particularly from the modern period. Rosicrucian meditation. So meditating with the Rose Cross, that's chapter 15. And there is at the end of that, after the meditation with the Rose Cross and what that is and how to do that, there is a very good afterword about Steiner's approach to Rosicrucian in general. So this is a really good book. I like all 3 books, but this one I particularly like. I really like this book. I think it's because I've always been interested for a long time, interested in the chemical wedding allegory in regard to Christian Rosicrucians. So I really like this book. I think the other 2 books are helpful to get an idea of the general approach by Steiner in regard to Rosicrucianism and Esoteric Christianity. But this one is particularly about Christian Rosicrucians and Rosicrucianism. But it does bring this also up to the modern period, the modern age. So that's a great book, The Secret Stream. And all 3 books written by Rudolf Steiner. They're quite easy to get. So I wanted to show those books today because I don't think many people know about the Steiner approach to this. But Rudolf Steiner had quite a background in Rosicrucianism and you know, a lot of people are not aware of that, but it had quite an influence on his own spiritual theories. So I'll put some details below the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.